The NFL draft is in the books, which means it is officially rookie draft season. In this video, I'm going to be talking you through my top 24 rankings in Superflex rookie drafts. In my last video, I spoke to you about some of the late round steals that I want you to target, but these are the players that you need to be targeting in the top 2 rounds. If you enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing, but let's get into it with the 101. It is absolutely consensus with the 101. I am going with Ashton Genty. The landing spot in Vegas is fantastic with a Pete Carroll offense that we know likes to feature one running back and loves to just run the damn ball. Now, I was intrigued to see whether or not consensus ended up flipping to Cam Ward after the draft, just because of the positional value of the 101 comparing quarterback to running back. And what I would say is, this is probably one of the least valuable 101s that we've had in a past few years, just because it is a running back. So if you can trade this pick for an absolute haul, I would really consider doing so. I traded the 101 for Nico Collins in a league this last week, and I'm delighted by that value, adding a wide receiver rather than a running back. So let me know down below in the comments if you have any questions, if you have the 101 and you're considering moving off the pick. At the 102, it is Cam Ward, the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. I actually quite like the landing spot. The weapons do need some development, but the O-line looks pretty nice. Calvin Ridley's pretty nice. The running backs are pretty nice as well. Now, Cam Ward for me goes here because of the positional value. He isn't someone I have as an elite quarterback just yet. He does have the tools to develop into one, but at this point in time, he isn't. So coming in as my Dynasty QB 16, if you can trade him for someone like Drake May, Kyler Murray, someone that I have in the tier above him, I would really consider doing so. But Cam Ward is going to be a starter in the NFL for a long time, so I'd be perfectly happy taking him here. The first pick where I'm really going against consensus is my 103 is Tetero McMillan. I love the fit of McMillan in this offense. First of all, replacing the Mike Evans role for Dave Canales, but also the fit that he has with Bryce Young's skill set. The fact that they needed an alpha, he is going to get such huge target volume in this offense, and I love that they took him at number 8 overall. I was really hoping he wouldn't slip down the board, and just that happened. He didn't slip down the board. Now, I have him over the running backs in this tier, which I think is probably against consensus. In fact, I know that it is in some leagues because I've seen him slip all the way down to the 107, where I traded up to get him in a Dynasty draft yesterday. So while I would take T-Mac with the 103, I think there's a chance that you don't have to, and you can trade back a couple of spots, pick up some value, and still get the guy you want to be your wide receiver 1. This is one of the other areas it goes against consensus. At the 104, I have Travion Henderson, obviously drafted in the second round, right at the top of the second round to the New England Patriots. Then the 105 is Omarion Hampton, who went in the first round to the LA Chargers. To me, it is an upside question. I think Travion Henderson is way more of a threat in the passing game than Omarion Hampton is. I think Omarion Hampton had surprisingly nice hands for a bigger back, but he cannot run routes the same way that Travion Henderson can. So to me, that's one of the reasons that I take Henderson over him. I also think as a pass protector, Henderson is an absolute monster, and Omarion Hampton is actually one of the worst pass protecting backs in this class. So there's a chance that he actually ends up coming off the field on third downs. Then I really like Henderson's fit in this offense. There's a world in which he actually ends up running routes out of the slot, and there might be the potential for a lot of checkdowns from Drake May, who we saw do that a fair amount last season, to Ramondre Stevenson, who they can move on from after this year. Don't let that make you think that I hate Omarion Hampton, though. I really like this player. I still have him at the 105 and as a top 12 Dynasty running back. It's just that I have Henderson slightly over him. At the 106 is Travis Hunter. If Hunter was coming in as a pure wide receiver, he'd be up in question with Tetero McMillan at the 103. But because of the questions about playing time, he slips down to the 106, which is still an incredibly high rookie pick. Now, this is basically a risk question. The risk with Travis Hunter is that, yeah, they said he's primarily going to play wide receiver when he first starts, but if they see an injury at corner, or if they watch him in training and think, actually, this is someone that I think is probably a better corner with some wide receiver snaps as well, there's a chance he could lose some of that workload. So it's where if you're willing to take that risk. I'm a little bit more risk adverse, which is why he drops down to the 106, but I can see the arguments take him as high as the 103. So it depends what you're willing to do in your rookie drafts. Are you willing to take that bet on Travis Hunter's upside and think he's that generational that you're willing to take him a little bit higher than this? At the 107, we have our first tight end, Colston Loveland. Loveland was my tight end 1 pre-draft, and I was delighted to see him not only land with the Bears, but land at the 110. It was incredibly exciting to see him taken that early into this potentially elite offense, and with an offensive coordinator / head coach in Ben Johnson, who we know knows how to use a tight end. One of my comps for Colston Loveland was actually Sam Laporta. And I think there's a chance that he could have that level of volume in this offense. If you look at rookie season Sam Laporta, I think he's going to come straight in as the second receiving option on this team, potentially ahead of DJ Moore. And I think there's a chance that this could be the future tight end 1, potentially challenging Brock Bowers as well. I love Colston Loveland. I love his fit in this offense, and I love being able to get him midway through the first round. At the 108, I have Quinshon Judkins, who landed with the Cleveland Browns at the top of the second round. This is more of a floor conversation than a ceiling conversation. Judkins is one of the best all-round backs in this class, but he doesn't quite have the same elite upside as some of the other running backs. I can't really tell you what his elite trait is or what he's great at. I just think he's good at a lot of things. But in Cleveland, who don't really have a quarterback or have 5 quarterbacks, depending on how you want to look at it, they will probably end up running the ball a lot in that Kevin Stefanski offense. And Quinshon, I think, is going to be the biggest benefactor of this. He comps quite nicely to Nick Chubb, so there's a chance that he could end up seeing a huge amount of volume that will see him slot in as a running back 2 straight away in his rookie season. Someone who's not going to contribute too much in his rookie season, but is worth drafting here anyway, is Emeka Egbuka, who landed with the Buccaneers at 19th overall, the pick in the first round that kind of shocked the world a little bit. I'm happy to take him at the 109. Now, in year 1 with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, there's a chance that Emeka isn't what we want him to be. But there's already talk about them moving Chris Godwin out wide to allow Egbuka to work out of the slot. We've seen how much the slot is targeted in this offense with Baker Mayfield. Chris Godwin was on course for wide receiver 2 numbers last season before he got hurt. Egbuka, I think at this point in his career, is a better player than Chris Godwin with more juice. And so I think that if he can take that starting slot role, or if Mike Evans is starting to age out, Chris Godwin is struggling from his injury, there's a chance he actually will contribute in year 1. If not, this is going to be a play for year 2 or 3. So you need to draft Egbuka with that in mind and know that he has to be a fit for the right roster who can afford to wait for him to contribute 1 or 2 years down the line. Someone else who may take a second to actually get involved in this offense is Luther Burden, who slipped to the second round of the NFL draft. Now, Burden went to an ideal landing spot with a creative play caller who's going to know how to use him, but his skill set is quite similar to a combination of DJ Moore and Colston Loveland occupying the same areas of the field. Now, if you read into Ben Johnson's recent press conference, there's a chance that DJ Moore actually ends up being moved. If that's the case, Luther Burden is going to be a huge value at the 110. But I actually think there's a chance that they see him as someone they can use out of the backfield as well, taking up the same explosive role that we've seen from Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think he's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, but I think there's a chance that this is actually the third down back, which I think is very interesting. At the 111, a huge riser was RJ Harvey, falling to potentially the best landing spot for any running back in the draft to the Denver Broncos in the second round. I loved Harvey pre-draft. He was my running back 6 and has risen to my running back 5 because of that landing spot and that draft capital. He is explosive as hell, and I'm so excited to see how he can do in year 1. Jackson Dart, probably not going to do a huge amount in year 1 at the 112, and someone I was quite low on pre-draft as my quarterback 4. But at the quarterback position in Dynasty, I am way more willing to just go with draft capital over my pre-draft evaluation. And the fact that he was taken in the first round means that you have to take him in the first round of your Dynasty drafts. Might take a minute for him to start, but he has the athletic tools to succeed in the league. And getting a starting quarterback in the back of the first round represents potential huge value for your Dynasty teams. If you are enjoying this video and you want to see more similar, please consider liking and subscribing. I am so close to 500 subscribers and I would love for you to help me on that journey. This is also the second time I've recorded this video, as I just recorded it in 26 degree heat without the sound, without my mic turned on. So if you want to kind of help me out when I'm having a little bit of a rough one because of that, click the subscribe button. But let's get into the second round, where I'm going to go a little bit quicker as well. So, speeding up a bit for the second round at the 201, Tyler Warren to the Indianapolis Colts. Someone that I was a little bit lower on, and I don't hugely like the landing spot either, but the athletic tools you can't really dismiss, and the fact that he could be the alpha in this receiving core, also worth the pick at the 201. At the 202, Jaden Higgins ended up going to the Texans. Now, I really like Jaden Higgins. I did have him behind Jalen Knoll, which is now flipped after the draft. Actually, directly flipped draft spots as well. I'd be really intrigued. People have been talking about put Jaden Higgins on the outside, put Jalen Knoll in the slot. I'd be intrigued to do it the other way around and have Nico Collins on one side, Jalen Knoll as kind of that vertical option working out of the X position or working out of the Z position, and then use Jaden Higgins as a big slot to just hoover up all of those underneath targets. Has the juice to then potentially open the play up a little bit more as well. That's how I'd like to see things in Houston, but because of the draft capital, he gets taken way ahead of Jalen Knoll. Then, talking about draft capital, at the 203, I have Matthew Golden. Now, Matthew Golden, despite going in the first round, has been dropping down draft boards because people have kind of overthought him. People have been hyping him up too much as a wide receiver one in this class, and everyone's then gone the other way. I really like the fit with Jordan Love. I like the fit with Matt LaFleur. I think he brings some verticality to this offense they don't really have. I think he brings the underneath juice as well, and I think they will know how to use him creatively to be able to present value. And when a wide receiver goes in the first round of the NFL draft, getting them in the second round of your rookie drafts is a gigantic value for you. So Matthew Golden for me still goes at the 203. At the 204, Jalen Knoll, who we kind of already spoke about. Disappointed not to see him go a little earlier. I really wanted the Rams to take him, and they still didn't. He went to the third round, so he ends up falling to the 204. At the 205 is Trey Harris, another player I was actually a little bit lower on, but I love the fit with Justin Herbert to help bring a vertical element to this offense. I still think that we didn't see enough of a full route tree from him at Ole Miss, but a huge part of that is just the Lane Kiffin offense. So if he can develop into a receiver who can be used all over the field, I'll be intrigued to see how he can develop with Justin Herbert. But that vertical alpha skill set combined with Justin Herbert's absolute howitzer of an arm, I think this is a matchup made in heaven. Cam Scatterbo then goes at the 206. He landed with the New York Giants with, I think it was the first pick on day 3 in the 4th round. Maybe it was the second pick after Chimere DK, because that was an interesting one as well. I like the fit. I think he's still going to lose some of the receiving work, but I think he's going to get all of the goal line work. And I think at the running back position, this presents really nice value because he is going to be the day 1 starter. He just probably isn't going to get a full workload in New York. At the 207 is Jack Bech. Now, Bech was one of my favorite wide receivers pre-draft, and he landed in a really nice landing spot in Las Vegas, who have a wide open depth chart in the wide receiver core, with basically just Jacoby Myers ahead of him. Now, the interesting thing about this is I comped Bech's play style to Jacoby Myers, so it's very interesting to see them land in the same offense. Bech has the chance to establish himself as the wide receiver 1 in this offense. Now, Brock Bowers is always going to be the top receiver here, but Jack Bech has a really high floor, potentially a lower ceiling, but getting him at the 207 where he can present weekly flex value from day 1 is very exciting. At the 208 is a player I actually didn't scout pre-draft. Kyle Williams was one of the biggest risers in NFL draft circles, basically from the last 2 weeks before the draft. He ends up being drafted in the 3rd round to the New England Patriots, who again have a wide open wide receiver depth chart. He will start opposite Stephon Diggs, but he has the release package and the route running chops to make a difference for Drake May from day 1. Then at the 209, another player I was slightly low on. I basically wrote up Bashal Tutin for Dynasty League Football, DLF, and said he needs the right landing spot if he's going to contribute. And then he found that landing spot. He is going to be a perfect fit for Liam Cohen's offense in Jacksonville. He is a one-cut runner with tremendous blazing speed, and the depth chart ahead of him is technically quite full at the minute, but I think Travis Etienne is going to end up getting traded or just cut, and I think Tutin could easily end up as the day 1 starter. And if that's the case, it is wheels up for Scootin' Rootin' Tootin'. Finally, at the 210, I have Mason Taylor, my tight end 3 in this class, and a player I was also desperate to get to the LA Rams. He just quite didn't make it, ending up falling with the New York Jets at 42 overall. Now, Taylor is more of a big slot than a tight end, but that is perfect in this offense. They need some size and some reliable hands with a big catch radius to pair up with Justin Fields. Maybe the ceiling isn't going to be there in year one, but I think he comes in straight away as the second receiving option in this offense. I grouped the last two players together. We have Jalen Milroe and Tyler Shugg. Now, Shugg I was quite low on pre-draft, and Jalen Milroe was my quarterback too. So this is a question of ceiling versus floor. If you have a dynasty roster with a lot of quarterbacks on that you're quite happy that you don't need someone to start day one, take Jalen Milroe. Take the player with the game-breaking upside who could absolutely wreck fantasy football if they ever see the field, but also knowing that if you waste this pick, it doesn't really matter anymore because you have enough quarterbacks to know that you're still going to be able to compete even if Milroe never ends up as a starter. If you're going into this draft really needing that quarterback 3, take Tyler Shugg. I think he's going to be the day one starter in the New Orleans Saints offense. I don't think he has a huge amount of upside, but the floor of a weekly starter is hugely valuable for the 212 where you'd be drafting him. So I've included these two players together because I think it's going to be a direct conversation between the two of them, and it is going to be so roster dependent which of them you actually take at this spot.